Kingroon KP3S Pro, got one sitting right here. I modified my KP3S and put the filament holder up on top because I don't have room, or I should say enough real estate space to use the normal setup. So I am going to do my top filament holder on this. It is a little bit different because of the way this is designed. So I've taken a file that I found on Thingiverse and I've done some modifications to it to make it work on this printer, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. I'm Roger, welcome to the shop, and as I mentioned, I'm going to be putting a top spool holder on here. The one disadvantage to that, though, is because of the filament runout sensor and where it's located, I won't be using that anymore. I'll just put a piece of filament in here and tie it, and it'll fool it in thinking there's filament there. I watch my filament closely, so I don't worry about running out. I've only ever had that happen once, and that was when I first got started out in this. Now I keep a close eye on it, so I don't need to worry about that. It's a nice function, but I don't need it. However, you still have to have something in there so it thinks it has filament. So this holder will mount up here like this, I should say like this, and then the filament will feed off and direct down into the top, this direct drive extruder. I've got to do a couple little mods. This has 4 parts. You've got the arm, you've got the roller, and then there's a little pin that you print that goes in the end. And then you have this cap. Now this cap has to mount here. So the original design that I downloaded from Thingiverse had little prongs down here that would go down into the extrusion and hold it. Well, because of the way this is made now, I need to drill a couple holes in this and bolt this down to the top, replacing these screws with some longer ones, and then I can mount my arm up here like this. And this roller gets bearings that actually come from the stock rollers. So I'll show you this stuff in detail and what I need to do. So what I have here first is this top cap, and I need to take this top cap off. Slip the bearing off of the Z-rod there. Okay, now this I need to use as a template to make some holes in this. But I still want to keep my Z-rod bearing back out of the way. So a good way to do this is to just hold it over here and draw some circles in it with a pencil that I don't have. There, so we'll get an idea here. Let's do a little bit of alignment, kind of get that in the center. Make sure that, what I want to make sure of is that this stays back behind the bearing. So another way I could do that would be to turn it over this way and get it centered. Let's draw a couple holes. So now I need to drill these out. Okay, so obviously I'm going to need a longer screw because the screws that came with it on it were very short. The longest I have, this is a 5mm diameter by the way, the longest I have is 20 M&Ms long. Well, as you can see, that's not quite long enough to get through there all the way. Hold this up so you can see it. There's not enough there to get through all the way. I really should have a 25mm, but I don't have one. So what I'm going to do is, after I drill these holes, is drill a little bit larger hole in there and countersink these socket heads. So since these are 5mm screws, these are 5mm bit. And incidentally, this cap was printed at 80% infill since I knew I was going to be drilling holes in it and stuff. So now I need to make a countersink for this socket head cap screw. And for that, the countersink hole needs to be, 8.2mm. So the nearest size, 8 is the biggest I have in my little set here, so I guess we'll go with an 8mm hole and maybe room it a little bit. Which on this countersink needs to be on the smaller diameter side because that's the side that faces up. We'll do a little test fit here. So when all is said and done, there they are, countersink down in there, and there's my protrusion. This will set over this bracket, like so. As you can see, it misses the bearing. So I could just take this and place it right back up on top. Line up my holes there. And screw this back on. So what we have now is this. So it's just like it was before, and now I have my mount, and I can set this on, and this just slips over that. It's a pretty snug little fit, like so. Now on the roller here, you've got obviously this little pin that comes out, so you're able to set it in there. This is what the bearings mount on. To do that, from your stock bearing thing here, there's these little pins, and you can push these out without much effort at all, like so. That'll give you your bearings. Of course, you won't need these pins now. Kind of hang on to them in case you ever want to go back to the other holder. Now these, just slip over these little pins, plastic pins here, like so, and it sets in like that. Then the filament spool sits up here and rolls very, very easily. I guess you can't see that up there. There's a little bit better view of it. So then that just rotates real easy. So now I need to make my modifications down here at the bottom. For the filament sensor down here, I'll take my tubing out. I'll just cut a piece of this. Maybe, there we go. Stick it back up through the filament sensor. Always fun when you got a real curly piece of filament. There we go. I'll just bring this back around, and I could just leave it, but I like to do this. Tie a little knot so it won't come out on its own. So now on this end, when I feed my filament in, I don't want it just running straight into that because it'll wear it. So I will cut a piece of this PTFE tubing. So this piece of tubing will stay in there. Now all I need to do is change my filament. So there you can see in the filament sensor, I got the blue LED in there, so it thinks it has filament. Maybe someday I'll figure out a way to mount that up on top and make use of it. But as I said, for me, it's not that important. Okay, for the filament change, pretty straightforward. Just pull the old piece out, find my end here. I've got my spool on here backwards. Got a little angle on the end to make life easier. And that's all there is to it. So that's all there is to it, to making this mod. Not difficult. Again, it was a file that I downloaded from Thingiverse and then modified it for the top cap here. Not difficult, or you could print it as is and just cut off those extrusions, either way. I don't recall exactly where this was on Thingiverse because it was a couple years ago that I originally downloaded it. I think if you do a search on Thingiverse for Kingroon, you'll probably find this and you can do whatever with it. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up, always helps the channel. Yes, I did do a video on this once before, but a lot of people said there's no detail to it, so there's a detail. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.